The Young and the Restless spoilers. Victor Newman's bold decision. The reckoning with Ian Ward. Victor Newman had faced countless adversaries in his lifetime, rivals in business, family betrayals, and enemies with personal vendettas. But none quite like Ian Ward. The man, infamous for his cunning and manipulative nature, had returned, standing defiantly on Victor's doorstep. It was a confrontation Victor had not anticipated, but one he was ready to face head-on. The unexpected encounter. Victor had just poured himself a glass of scotch in his lavish study when the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Newman," his head of security announced, "Ian Ward is at the front door." Victor's hand tightened around the glass. Ian Ward. The name alone sent a ripple of unease through the air. The man had been a thorn in the Newman family's side for years. Now, he had the audacity to show up at Victor's estate, unannounced and uninvited. Victor approached the door, his powerful frame casting an imposing shadow. As the door opened, there stood Ian, smirking, his posture oozing arrogance. His eyes sparkled with a confidence that suggested he had a plan, but Victor was not a man easily intimidated. "Ian," Victor greeted him coldly, his voice as sharp as a blade. "What brings a snake like you slithering to my doorstep?" Ian chuckled, unfazed by the insult. "Victor, you and I have unfinished business. And I'm here to make sure it's resolved." The heated the conversation quickly escalated into a full-blown argument. Ian taunted Victor, bringing up past grievances and insinuating that the Newman family would suffer for Victor's sins. Victor, in turn, warned Ian to stay away, his tone laced with a threat that would have sent most men running. But Ian was no ordinary man. He thrived on chaos and confrontation. "You think you can protect your precious family from me?" Ian sneered. "You've built your empire on lies and manipulation. It's about time someone brought you to your knees." Victor's patience snapped. "Enough," he thundered, his voice echoing through the grand halls of the mansion. "You don't scare me, Ian. You've made a grave mistake coming here." Ian's smirk widened. "Or perhaps you've made a mistake by letting me in." A dangerous plan takes shape. Victor's mind raced. Ian Ward was a threat, not just to him but to his entire family. The Newman legacy could not afford to be tarnished by Ian's schemes. Victor had dealt with enemies before, and he wasn't above using unconventional methods to neutralize them. His thoughts drifted to the underground cellar, a dark, soundproof chamber where he had once held Jordan captive. It was a place that few knew existed, and it was the perfect location to keep Ian Ward under control. Victor's decision was swift. He needed to eliminate the immediate threat. Without warning, he lunged forward, delivering a swift and calculated blow that sent Ian crumpling to the floor. The man was heavier than he looked, but Victor's adrenaline-fueled strength made dragging him to the cellar a manageable task. As he locked Ian in the damp, cold chamber, Victor stared at his unconscious adversary. "You've brought this upon yourself, Ian," he muttered. "You dared to challenge me in my own home. Now, you'll face the consequences." A trap within a trap? Victor's victory was short-lived. As he returned to the main floor, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Ian's visit was too convenient, too deliberate. Ian wasn't reckless, he was a master manipulator. Why had he come to the Newman estate alone? And why now? Victor's suspicions deepened when he considered the possibility that Ian's appearance was a trap. Was Ian counting on being captured? If Ian failed to return, would someone, Jordan, perhaps, report Victor to the authorities? The thought was chilling. Victor had always operated in the shadows, but holding Ian prisoner could expose him in ways he wasn't prepared for. He summoned his most trusted confidant, his head of security, to strategize. "I want eyes on Jordan and anyone connected to Ian Ward," Victor ordered. If Ian planned this, he didn't plan it alone. The layers of Ian's scheme. Meanwhile, in the cellar, Ian stirred. Despite the cold and the darkness, his mind was sharp. This was exactly where he wanted to be. Ian had anticipated Victor's reaction, and he knew the man would resort to extreme measures to protect his family. That's why he had planted the seeds of doubt with Jordan before arriving at Victor's door. Ian had orchestrated a scenario where, no matter what Victor did, he would lose. If Victor let him go, Ian would continue his campaign to destroy the Newmans. If Victor kept him captive, Jordan, and perhaps others, would ensure the law came knocking on Victor's door. Ian leaned back against the damp wall, a sly grin creeping across his face. "Checkmate, Victor," he whispered to himself. Victor's counterstrike. Victor, however, was not a man to be outplayed. As suspicions swirled in his mind, he began to unravel Ian's scheme. He contacted his most trusted allies, setting into motion a plan to neutralize not just Ian but anyone who might be working with him. Victor's network of influence was vast, and he intended to use every resource at his disposal. "I won't let a snake like Ian Ward destroy what I've built," Victor declared to his confidant. "Not today. Not ever." The tension builds as the hours passed. The situation became a battle of wits. Victor and Ian, two master strategists, each sought to outmaneuver the other. The question remained, who would emerge victorious? For Victor, this was more than a battle, it was a war to protect his family and his legacy. For Ian, it was a chance to prove that even the mighty Victor Newman was not invincible. As their deadly game unfolded, the Newman estate became a crucible of tension, secrets, and danger. This narrative sets the stage for a high-stakes battle between two powerful adversaries. It leaves room for further twists, ensuring the story remains engaging and dynamic. Would you like to explore a continuation or add more details to specific parts of the story? The Newman conspiracy, Nikki's role and Ian's peril. Victor Newman was not alone in his daring plan to neutralize Ian Ward. Nikki Newman, his loyal yet strong-willed wife, had become an unexpected accomplice. The stakes were high, and she knew Ian posed a direct threat not only to her husband but to her own survival. Fear was a powerful motivator, and Nikki was prepared to go to extremes to protect herself and her family. A dangerous alliance after Victor incapacitated Ian and dragged him toward the mysterious underground chamber. He realized the task required more hands. Nikki, overhearing the commotion, descended the grand staircase with a mixture of concern and resolve etched on her face. "Victor," she whispered urgently, glancing at Ian's unconscious body sprawled on the floor. "What's going on?" Victor's eyes burned with determination. "Ian Ward. He showed up at our home, daring to threaten us. I won't let him endanger our family." Nikki hesitated for a moment, her mind racing. Then, with a deep breath, she nodded. "What do you need me to do?" Together, they hoisted Ian's body, maneuvering it down the hidden passage that led to the cellar, a room few had ever seen. This wasn't just an ordinary cellar. It was a soundproof chamber that Victor had once used to imprison Jordan, a former enemy. The room was designed for one purpose, to ensure its occupant could not escape or communicate with the outside world. The cellar of secrets. The chamber was cold and dimly lit, its walls lined with thick, reinforced concrete. The only furniture was a cot and a small table. A single flickering bulb illuminated the space, casting eerie shadows. As Victor and Nikki secured Ian inside, they exchanged a glance. "This room has kept secrets before," Victor said grimly. "It will keep him silent." Nikki shivered, not from the cold but from the enormity of what they were doing. She tightened her grip on the iron key and locked the heavy door with a resounding click. "He's not getting out," she said firmly. "I won't let him." Nikki's fear and determination. Nikki's involvement wasn't just about loyalty to Victor. It was also rooted in self-preservation. She had faced enemies before, but Ian Ward was different. He was ruthless, manipulative, and seemingly indestructible. The thought of him roaming free filled her with dread. "Ian can't escape," she told Victor later that evening. "He'll destroy us if he does. We have to make sure he stays locked away." Victor nodded. "He won't get out. And even if someone comes looking for him, they'll find nothing." But Nikki's fear ran deeper. What if Ian had planned for this? What if someone, Jordan, perhaps, was already waiting to act? She couldn't let her guard down, not for a moment. Ian's silent struggle inside the chamber. Ian Ward began to stir. His head throbbed from the blow Victor had delivered, and as his senses returned, he realized he was in a dire situation. The walls were thick, the door unyielding, and the room was completely soundproof. Shouting for help was futile. There was no phone, no way to call out. Ian was utterly isolated. But Ian Ward was no ordinary man. He was cunning, resourceful, and determined. He began to search the room for weaknesses, testing the walls and the door. Yet, every effort confirmed what he already suspected: the Newmans had planned this well. Escape was impossible, at least for now. Ian's mind raced. He had expected Victor to act aggressively, but he hadn't anticipated being locked away. Was this part of Victor's plan, or had Nikki's fear pushed them to such extremes? Ian clenched his fists. He couldn't afford to panic. He needed to think. The threat of Jordan Ian's predicament wasn't just about his own survival. He had taken precautions before coming to Victor's estate. He had left instructions with Jordan, a loyal accomplice, to act if he didn't return. But there was a catch: Ian hadn't anticipated being completely cut off. The soundproof chamber meant he had no way of contacting Jordan or anyone else. Jordan, meanwhile, had grown anxious. Ian had promised to check in, and his silence was alarming. Suspecting foul play, Jordan began considering his options. Reporting Victor to the authorities for unlawful imprisonment was a risky move, but it might be the only way to ensure Ian's safety. The Newman secret's at risk. Unbeknownst to Victor and Nikki, the mysterious cellar wasn't as secret as they believed. Months earlier, Cole and Michael, two of Victor's business rivals, had stumbled upon its existence. Though they hadn't acted on their discovery, the knowledge lingered. If either of them connected Ian's disappearance to the Newmans, the fallout could be catastrophic. Nikki, ever the pragmatist, voiced her concerns to Victor. "We can't keep him here forever," she said. "Someone will come looking for him." Victor's expression hardened. "Let them. By the time they do, Ian Ward will wish he had never set foot in this house." A deadly standoff. As the hours turned into days, the tension grew. Ian's health began to deteriorate in the damp, airless chamber, but his resolve remained unbroken. Meanwhile, Nikki's fear intensified. Every creak of the house, every unexpected knock at the door, sent her into a state of panic. Victor, on the other hand, was unyielding. "This is a war, Nikki," he told her. "And in war, you do whatever it takes to win." But even Victor couldn't ignore the growing risk. Ian's presence in the chamber was a ticking time bomb. If Jordan acted, if Cole and Michael revealed what they knew, or if Ian somehow found a way to escape, the consequences would be devastating. The next move. As Victor and Nikki plotted their next steps, Ian continued to scheme. Despite his dire circumstances, he had one advantage: he knew the Newmans' darkest secrets. And if he ever got out of that chamber, he intended to use them. The battle between Victor Newman and Ian Ward was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. Both men were playing a dangerous game, and the stakes were higher than ever. For Nikki, Victor, and the Newman family, the question wasn't just whether they could contain Ian, it was whether they could survive the storm that was coming.